Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, friends. Take a deep breath in and slowly, all together, breathe out until your lungs are empty. Breathe and breathe again as we enter this week together. This time in December, we begin the final week of the year where each day is shorter and still shorter than the last. We are walking together into the dark season, the time of cold and of rain. In this season, allow yourself an opportunity to grieve what we cannot change. Allow yourself just that moment to open your heart to sorrow and be safe there. For centuries of human tradition, there is hope in these times, and we must find it. Revelation in the fires and connections we will kindle together. We will feel losses, we assure ourselves, and we will also return each day from the darkness, pulled forward by the promise of each new dawn. My name is Ardia Eichner, and I am your worship associate for this morning. For those who would benefit from a visual description, I am a white young adult with curly brown hair covered today by a Carhartt hat in a holiday sweater. I invite all people here in Zoom and in our sanctuary, visitors and longtime members, to hold yourselves gently today. May we open our hearts to a brave exploration of life, of change, and of all that the cold season brings in. And for any people who like reading sheet music, our books of hymns are available if the lyrics on the screen are not quite enough for what you would like. Our chalice lighting this morning will be with words from Melissa Jeter. Let the presence of grace be revealed when we reorient ourselves to each other. May we embrace the wisdom of our ancestors speaking to us in the traditions we have continued. Let us breathe the breath of abundance, knowing there is enough. We are enough. Let us circle back home to regenerate for the journeys to come. Amen, Ashe, blessed be.
Good morning. My name is Ember. I use they, them pronouns, and I currently serve as our ministerial intern. And I am a medium-aged, medium-height, femme-presenting human, and I'm wearing a lot of purple today. Our chalice lighters today were teachers Mel and Sam, who we invited to light the chalice in honor of Ryan. As we enter our time together, I would also like to begin by lighting our Advent candles. This is the third Sunday of Advent, and although we have not lit them every Sunday this season, I wanted to take this opportunity to do so. And actually, Ardia, would you mind lighting them as I speak? Thank you. Advent is a practice of watching for the light that grows in the darkest weeks of the year. Traditionally, we start with the center candle. In many Christian traditions, this is called the Christ candle. But of course, in our UU tradition, we welcome many interpretations of this light. And for me, the center of our faith is love, the kind of love that calls us back again and again. Now we light the first candle for hope. We light the second candle for peace. And we light the third candle for joy. And since this is the third week, I will also offer a reading from Psalm 126, verses 5 and 6. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seeds to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. On our altar, you will also see the menorah. We will not be lighting this menorah until the evening service, but its presence honors the many stories that shape this season. Our chalice also burns among these lights in this season of Hanukkah, Christmas, and solstice, each reminding us that light is something we tend together. Come, let us worship together. As we gather in this season of growing darkness, we pause to honor a light that shines among us, the light of community. Today, we welcome those who have chosen to join this congregation as members, weaving their lives with ours in shared purpose, care, and courage. Each arrival is a reminder that belonging is a living act, renewed again and again through love. I invite our new members who are here today to come forward as I read their names. Susan Ban, Linda Kelly, and Larry Dunlap. We have a small gift. You will also get a certificate that says you are now a member, and we are so glad that you are with us. And now, I invite all of us to rise in body or spirit as we speak together the words of our covenant. As a beloved community empowered by love, we covenant to embrace non-loving, open to the change they will bring. We covenant to trust others in their identity and truth and work to be trustworthy. We covenant to speak our truth bravely and gently as we commune in love and peace. We covenant to make efforts to understand the views of others and make amends when intentions and impact collide. We covenant to expand our reach with the larger community with humility and empathy. We covenant to remember that how we are with each other is the foundation upon which we build the beloved community. Welcome, new members. May this community offer radical welcome for your hope, your gifts, and your light. You may be seated. And as we honor the ways this community holds one another, I would like to invite Medley to the front to offer a from the heart testimonial about radical welcome.
My name is Medley. I use he, they pronouns. For those who need a visual description, I am a middle-aged person with dark brown skin, a white beard, and no hair on my head. I have tattoos on my arms, shoulders, and back. I'm here to talk about my experiences with different activities I've enjoyed here and how I've gotten more involved over the years. This community has made all the difference in the world to me, and I love it. The pandemic, as awful as it is, did some good for me in the beginning. Because of my social anxiety, I actually benefited from social distancing and masks. I was scared to go out, but felt too isolated and lonely to stay at home. I was a mess, and I knew I needed to make some changes in my life. I decided to look for small groups to volunteer with to help get me out of the house and work on being in public. It did not go well, and I had several unhappy experiences before I found UU. I wasn't planning to join the church. I just thought it sounded like an organization I could support with service work and stay on the fringes of. I love the principles and values and thought this church might be more open-minded than others. I thought my differences might be tolerated here. It never occurred to me that I would be embraced and accepted here because I have been in too many places that sounded much better on paper than they were in actuality. The building was closed at the time, and my only experiences with members were the buildings and ground crew. Sorry. The love and care they showed me was my first experience with radical welcoming. It was those experiences that left me open to exploring this community more. They treated me very gently and took in stride odd behavior that others had mocked. It was nice to be trusted with something again and know I'd be missed if I wasn't there. I went through a period when I was overwhelmed and depressed. I stopped showing up on Tuesdays and didn't answer my phone for anyone. Eventually, a group from Building and Grounds showed up at my door to check on me. I was very embarrassed and also very grateful. For a long time, I'd felt that if I just disappeared, no one would notice. Since those first few connections, over the years, I've found others through different groups, coffee hours, classes, and other occasions. I still find coffee hour the scariest. I was willing to continue exploring because one by one, as each individual or group welcomed me in, I had a little more trust that the next one would also. I had lost faith that I would ever find a whole community where I was comfortable enough to assume good intent, but this one still sparkles to me. The second group I explored was a brief time with one of our SGCC groups. I felt welcome, but I had a lot of trust issues and wasn't ready to share yet. I never gave it a chance. After knowing the community better, I regret that now. Many friends have shared their wonderful experiences with SGCC groups with me. Over several years, I've explored quite a few of our justice, affinity, and interest groups and met some amazing people. I continue to attend events and classes here at UU, including Beloved Conversations, Our Whole Lives, and Welcoming Trans Inclusion. I love learning about all the different possibilities to live out our principles and ways to be welcoming to others as their whole selves. This community didn't just welcome me at the entryway when I came inside. I found new welcoming with every encounter I had. UUCC has a lot to offer, and I've benefited from it greatly. Places like this don't happen by accident. Together, we have to create and sustain them. When others pass through these doors, they want the same sense of invitation and need to receive it. Seeing this new member ceremony and this church grow continues to remind me of the radical welcome I received. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Medley, for your openness and your vulnerability. And I know that we will continue to be so happy that you are here and that all of our new members are here and that all of our longtime members are here. And as we move into joys and sorrows, I do just want to name the grief in this room. I know that this week has been really, really heavy, and that Ryan's death comes after our beloved Ellie's death, and that both of those losses are being felt right now in this room. And each week, we take time to hold the joys and sorrows of this community. And this ritual reminds us that no one carries life's moments alone, whether they glow with gratitude or rest heavy with grief. In a moment, you will be invited to approach any of the joys and sorrows tables and place a stone in water. You may also wish to write in the book or some of the leaves of paper a reflection, which we will read at the end of this ritual. And if you prefer to remain seated, you are invited to use this time for silent meditation or reflection. And before we begin our music, I would like to invite us into the spirit of prayer. As Unitarian Universalists, we know that prayer takes many forms, and not all of us pray in the same way or at all. And still, this season and these times sometimes call us into that space. So if prayer is not your practice, you are welcome to breathe, to listen, or simply be present in this circle of care. Spirit of life and love, God of no names and many names, meet us here in the pause between breath and breath. We come carrying stories of loss and of waiting, of laughter that sneaks up on us even in sorrow, and quiet that holds us steady, each joy and sorrow part of the same shared warmth. May this be the fire we tend together, patient, faithful, and alive in the dark. Amen, and so mote it be. This morning's service cannot possibly hold all that we are feeling this day and this season. And it's not meant to. For those who wish to return to the space later today, our Blue Winter Vigil begins at 6 p.m. This will be a quieter service of song, readings, and reflection. And this is offered for anyone whose heart feels tender in this long night. Just a reminder that that will be a masked event, just so that we are able to honor our most vulnerable beloveds. And we will have a Zoom option if you prefer not to mask. And I'm realizing that what I've written about needing deeper pastoral care, Rev. Jen already said, so I would encourage you to find a church adult that you feel safe talking to if you are a person who needs some extra care right now. And so we've got pictures of our lay pastors on the wall right back there, and our ministerial staff is also available. This time of year often reveals the quiet places where sorrow lives, even when we thought we had prepared ourselves for its return. And this is especially true this year and this fortnight as we grieve the loss of two beloveds, Ryan, our beloved director of religious exploration, and Ellie, a longtime member who was also a beloved trans elder. December can be especially sneaky here in the Pacific Northwest. The light grows thin almost without warning, and the days shrink faster than our lists of responsibilities. Our bodies feel that coming winter before our minds catch up sometimes, because here in the Pacific Northwest, the sun sits so low on the horizon, even in the summer, that our skin often doesn't absorb enough vitamin D. And so by the time winter arrives, many of us feel a weight that is not the result of choices, but of geography and physiology, of living in a body shaped by a turning planet. And that weight rests on top of everything else this season brings. Family gatherings can feel tender and complicated. There can be a lot of pressure to feel joy when it may not come easily. And particularly this week, we may also feel joy and then feel that joy is somehow out of place. 2025 has been a lot. For me, for all of us, all of it unfolding within a year where the world just feels so harsh and uncertain, and empathy fatigue settles into our muscles, and the call to keep showing up feels heavier than usual. And in the midst of all of this, our chalice glows. It flickers not to erase the dark, but to accompany us through it. This act of lighting our chalice each week places the story we tell within the oldest winter stories. Solstice circles, Hanukkah lamps, Christmas vigils, Advent candles, our candle of life. Our altar this morning has so many flames from so many traditions, and each tradition gathers small lights tended by human hands, rising from communities who have known marginalization, hunger, exile, cold, and death. Those who first held vigils through the longest nights were not the most powerful people in their communities. They were often women, midwives, healers, elders, children, and workers, those whose names were rarely remembered, but whose labor made survival possible. In many regions of Northern Europe, it was these hands that tended the great Yule fire on solstice, the longest and darkest night of the year. They kept warmth in the hearth, preserved food stores, and watched over the youngest and the oldest. Through that long night, someone always rose to feed the coals so another could rest. Solstice wisdom is the wisdom of the fire keepers, tending a flame that lasts not because the night is short, but because many hands refuse to let it go out, even when they themselves were tired. These early fire keepers teach us that warmth is something we sustain together, especially when the winter feels precarious, reminding us that the long night was never meant to be carried alone. And when we at UUCE gather for the spiral walk, when we drop folded paper into our burning bowl each New Year's, when we sit in sacred silence to mourn a death in our community, we are becoming part of that lineage of care. We remember that keeping our flames alive is shared work, and that this work has always depended on those whose contributions are often overlooked. The flames of solstice moved beside the flames of Hanukkah, where another marginalized community once faced and still faces long nights filled with threat. Hanukkah is a story of occupation and repression, belonging to a people living on the edge. In the story of Hanukkah, a small group of Jewish rebels, known as the Maccabees, rose up to reclaim their freedom from oppressive forces and restore their temple in Jerusalem. That temple had been desecrated by foreign powers who were trying to erase the Jewish practice entirely. And at the heart of that temple stood a sacred lamp, a menorah, which was meant to burn continually as a sign of God's presence and the people's enduring covenant. When the Maccabees entered their ruined sanctuary, they found only one small jar of oil, enough to keep that flame alive for a single day. Yet tradition teaches that the lamp must be lit for 8 days, long enough for new oil to be prepared. The miracle of Hanukkah is that lamp, and the survival of even a single jar of lamp oil meant that someone had to guard it. Someone risked everything to preserve one fragile possibility of light. And the people who lit that lamp, knowing the danger and the stakes, lit it anyway. For centuries, Jewish teachers have offered a justice-oriented telling of that story. The lighting of that lamp was not a miracle of oil, but a miracle of stubbornness, of collective courage. The helper candle carries that theology in its flame. It lights every other candle without diminishing its own, showing how oppressed communities build networks of survival. The light multiplies, not because the darkness disappears, but because people choose to sustain one another through it. Solstice and Hanukkah, side by side, remind us that light is not the absence of danger, but the practice of courage and care in the midst of it. And these stories are not frozen in time, but speak urgently into our present. This year, as with many years, our Jewish beloveds face a sharp rise in anti-Semitism. And at the same time, our pagan beloveds face renewed hostility from movements that fear earth-centered spirituality. Even my Christian clergy colleagues, those who center the Christian gospel as a story of a brown boy who fought systems and centered love, are being silenced. The flame tenders are threatened. The Christmas story also rises from that same landscape of uncertainty. From the margins of empire, Mary enters as a child, her small body carrying both risk and possibility, her story shaped by forces larger than herself. When the gospel storytellers focus on angels and kings and signs in the sky, they leave out the people who would have been the first to respond. They leave out the women, the midwives, the aunts and neighbors and sisters who would have heard Mary's cries and moved towards her with water and cloth, with herbs and skill. No one should labor alone, and I believe historically and culturally that there must have been women there to help Mary through labor, because without them, Jesus doesn't survive that story. And I find myself wondering if perhaps the women who came hearing Mary's cries were the sisters and wives of the shepherds. Because within that story, even their presence is marked by marginalization, those who live out, away from safety. To center Mary as human means recognizing her need for community, her right to autonomy, and her right to boundaries. As I said last Easter, Mary deserves her full humanity, not a flattened role shaped by others. Her resilience is real, and so is the circle that held her. And that circle is where the sacred emerges. This chalice flame, the solstice vigil, the Hanukkah candles, the Christmas story, and our own candle of life carry a shared lesson. These lights endure not because the world gives them freely, but because people have tended them with courage and care, reminding us that sorrow is not meant to be carried alone. I actually reached out to our former intern, Tina, who gave us our candle of life, and unfortunately did not hear from her, and so did not get to hear the backstory of that candle. And yet, talking to folks in our community, it sounds like when she was our intern, she realized that we didn't have a tradition for when one of our beloved members dies. And so she introduced it as a way for us to hold those folks. And in that same tradition, I have actually brought the center candle for our Advent candles is actually a candle that I have been lighting exclusively for Trans Day of Remembrance for the past 5 years. And I wanted to bring it out as our center love candle today, as a way of integrating it into our community and our rituals. When we hear members of our own beloved community speak about how volunteering, helping, belonging, being part of this place eases their loneliness, many of us recognize something in ourselves. I certainly do. There have been seasons when the light I needed was not one I could kindle on my own. And I know that we are aching this morning. Our hearts are aching. And I know this because mine is. And I know that this heartbreak is not something I bear alone. Our shared work now is simple. Being in community means more than just offering our light to others. Part of holding one another is asking for help when we need it, allowing someone else to carry the flame for a while. So please, this season, let this community hold what you cannot hold alone. This is how we make it through the long night. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition has never promised that darkness disappears. We are a covenantal faith, and that means that we promise each other that we will not face the darkness alone. May we tend our own lights as we tend to the lights of others, knowing that each flame is sacred, holy, and part of a whole, a constellation. Amen, and so mote it be. And now, if you would please join me in our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hoard in our hearts until we are together again. And now, as we go from this service, remember to tend your light and to pay attention to the light of others. Amen, and so mote it be.